Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session. As Abhinav said, if you have missed the last session, that's totally fine. You can still catch up. So I'll just put all the links in chat again once more to all the resources we have. That is the course, the GitHub repository, and the WhatsApp group. Yeah. So today what we'll be covering is Unit 1 of the course. So I'll show you guys again what's the course. This is what you see when you land on the course page. What we are doing right now is prior programming experience page. We covered Kotlin Cons last session, and this session we are going to be covering with the majority of Unit 1. Yeah, we'll get right into it. Yeah, last week we looked into Kotlin syntax and Android Studio introduction, and we just built the default Hello World app. Today we'll be looking into all the types of Android components like views, layouts, activities, fragments, and navigation, and then how to debug your apps. So basically, if you find any errors, if you encounter any issues, how to find out what the problem is, and everything about that. And then we'll be looking into a few more advanced concepts at the end, and we'll also be doing the dice roller app of Unit 1, which is basically an app I'll show you guys right now. uh, One second. Yeah, this is the app we'll be discussing about. So the basic functionality of the app is to just show an image of a dice and randomize the dice, and when you press roll. So if you press roll, it just rolled a 5 right now. So all this logic you have to type yourself. And yeah, an additional feature I introduced was simply a favorite number here. So you just type your favorite number out of 6. So let's say I type 6. And if I roll 6, it will just say, yeah, you rolled your favorite number. So if I spam it, yeah, it's your favorite number. Yeah, that is the basic app we're going to be looking at today. After we cover the basics about views and layouts. So going right into it. So to design views in Android, you will be using the layout designer in Android Studio. I'll be bringing that up as well. Yeah. So this is the layout designer of Android Studio. Uh, as I said in last session, all the layouts are kept in the layout folder under res. Res stands for resources. So this is the default activity layout that is generated by Android Studio. It's called activity main. That's the name of the activity main. So the layout name is activity underscore main, and all layout files are written in XML. That's just a structured language to give structure to data you want to store. So basically, the whole layout is a structure, right? So it's a structure of where the button is. It's a structure of what views we have where. So the roll button here is in the middle of the screen. So that is also kind of a structure if you think about it. Yeah. So this is the layout designer in Android Studio, and over here on the left you have what's called a palette. Here you have drag and drop items that you can easily drag and drop. So the common part here has text views, buttons, image views, and many other stuff. And here if you go on, you can see there are many drag and drop items you have here. So for example, if I were to want a button, I could just drag the button and put it here. Yeah, that's basically what the palette is. And then just below that, you could see the component tree. So basically, what the component tree means and is used for is what's called view groups. So what a view is just the basic component level of this app. So a button is a view. So it's something you view on your screen. So a view group is something that can hold views. So something like what you see on the left here, there's something called a constrained layout. So what this constrained layout is a view group. It's a view group. So what the constraint layout, as you see, it has many views inside it. All these views under it are inside it. So if you want, you could go on this tab called split screen here. So what this does is it puts the design to your right of the screen, and then it just shows you the XML code that is used for this view. So if you look into this, you could also collapse code here. So I'm collapsing this right now. So there's only one main tag here that's called the constraint layout tag. So the constraint layout is basically a view group which is used to arrange views in your screen. So as I said before, if you want to center this button here, you could do that using constraint layout. There are many other layouts as well. So a view group isn't necessarily a layout, but layout is always a view group. So what the layout helps you to do is give the position for other views inside it. So in constraint layout, how you do this is I just drag and drop this button here. When you click on the button, you see there are four circles around here. What these are called are constraints. So what a constraint is basically like a spring in real life. So if I were to take a spring on top of this button and then I put it to the top of the view, it just automatically goes up. So what would a spring do if you left it? It just contracts, right? That's a basic concept of constraints. So what you did here is basically put a spring between the top of the button and the top of the layout. So same way you could just put the spring from another spring from left to the left of layout, then it just goes towards the left. So this way you could position the view wherever you want. And what you could do with constraint layout, there are more powerful stuff you could do as well. So for example, if you were to have a row of items, you could just chain all the views, and then it would just appear like a row of items. And you could have another thing called dynamic behavior. It basically stands for example, you don't know what text this button will show. So if I were to type, instead of button, if I were to type something long string, so it just expands to its size itself. So you could control all of this stuff with constraint layout. So if you don't want something to overlap something, you could do all of this with constraint layout. The only layout you'll probably be needing is constraint layout. So that's what we'll be using here as well. So as I said, if you were to center this button here, what I would have to do is I align the left, I gave the constraint to the left of the layout. Now what I would need is the right to the right of the layout as well. So what it does is it spaces it equally from both sides. That is the center. Right now it's centered horizontally only. We want to center it vertically as well. Let's say. So we have the top constraint as well. So what we'll do next is just put the bottom constraint as well. So now it's constrained from all sides towards the layout. So what this does is it spaces it equally inside the layout. So you could not just give the constraint to the whole layout. You could just say, for example, I want the beginning to be on the end of this button. So what it does is it basically tries to put the beginning part of this new button to the beginning of to the end of this old button. So it doesn't have space. That's why it goes out of the screen. So yeah, we'll be looking how to fix that as well. So coming on to the other part of the layout designer on the right here, it's what's called attributes tab. So if you were to go into split screen as well and look into the code, this is the button. If you click on the button, it automatically scrolls to the code where the button is. So this is the XML code for the button. uh, it basically says the yellow part here is what says what the view is. So this view is a button, so it just says button here. So the attributes part over here is the same as the attributes part over here. So everything you define, let's say the width of the button, the height of the button, everything you define would be in attributes. So here, as can see, I have mentioned layout width. That basically says what's the width of this button. and then you give it a value wrap content. Wrap content basically means to take the size of the content that's inside the button. So I only have the text role here, so it just takes the size of that text. So in the new button, I have a longer text, so it just takes the size of the longer text. So if I were not to do this, what I could give is the default values for layout width is usually wrap content, and there's another thing called as match parent as well. What match parent does is it takes the whole width of the screen or whole height of the screen. You don't want this usually. So what you do in constraint layout is you give it 0. So when you give it 0, it calculates the width between the constraints you gave. So I gave the left part to the end of this button and the right part to the right of the layout. So it just calculated what's the width between this, and it automatically sizes it. So this is the power of constraint layout. You could do all kinds of layouts with a constraint layout like this. For now, I'm just deleting this button. I just dragged and dropped it to show you all. So yeah, now this is back to the original layout. So as I was saying, these are the attributes. Some common attributes are ID. ID basically identifies what view this is. So if you were to as I said before, the functionality is to roll a dice, right? So you want to know what should you do when you press this button. So how do you identify this button? You need an ID. So that's what you specify in the ID attribute, and then you give the width attribute for the width, height attribute for the height, and then there's things called as margins and paddings. What margins and paddings mean are basically spacing between stuff. So as you can see, I gave a margin start here. In Android layout, start actually means left, and end actually means right. So it basically is synonymous to start of the button and end of the button. Yeah. So margin start means I'm giving the left of the button 16 dp of margin. So what dp means is it's called, the full term is density pixels. It basically is why because there are many phones in the world which run Android, right? So you could have a 5-inch screen phone, you could have a 7-inch screen phone, you could have a 4.5-inch screen phone. So your app has to work and look the same in all of these phones. So what you have to do is have an independent uh, dimension for your views. So what that is dp. So if you give it 16 dp, it would automatically calculate all those hard max problems for you all, and display it the same way in each phone. So that's what it means, density independent pixels. So it is independent of the screen size or the resolution of the phone. So you would have heard resolutions like 1080p, 720p. Yeah, it is independent of all of that. So that's a say. You could also give the width as dps. So if I were to give this button only 10 dp, it doesn't show text because it's too small. So you could also give width and height, and every dimension you could give it using dp. So going back to wrap content, and then what the margin does is it basically gives spacing between whatever constraint we gave. So margin start, actually, if you can see it right here, it says 16 here. So what this does is, even if let's say I were to if this were a small screen, you could actually do that by the drop down here. What it's set to is a 5-inch pixel right now. So you could just try it out on all these screens. So if I were to have a tablet, let's say, this is what the app would look like. So that's the power of having Android Studio in the first place. So if I were to have it on a very small screen, this is a 2.7-inch phone. So you could see there is spacing between all these elements. So that is due to the margin here. So the margin actually sets spacing between the view and whatever you're constrained to. So there's another thing called as padding. Padding is basically spacing inside the view. So if I were to give a padding, it has auto suggestions as well if you have Android Studio. So you could try that out as well. If I were to give, let's say, 16 dp of padding, see what What this does is, as you can see, the button increase in size, but text is still the same size. Why this happens is because when I give it padding, the whole box inside it took 16 dp space extra. So what that did is basically stretch out the button. So most probably you will only be using margins in the start, and then you will get accustomed to paddings as well. So yeah, that is the basics of layout design. And then other attributes. Yeah. So another attribute you could have is the text attribute. It basically says what text to show in the button or the text view. We have all kinds of views as I showed before. Text view is basically to show text. So see, this is a text view. You could change the text of this also using the text attribute. All the attributes are listed here. As you see, there are thousands of attributes. You don't have to know all of this all. You just need to know what you need to do. So text is another common one, and another common one would be the SRC tag. So as you can see, there is a dice image right here, right? So you could give that using the SRC compat tag. Compat basically is for handling different Android versions. As you all may know, there are different Android versions like Lollipop, KitKat, Marshmallow, and the latest Android 10 now. So Compat basically provides support for all those Android versions. You would see this term usually in Android. So that is what Compat means. SRC is basically why if you have done web development, you would have heard SRC is short for source. So the source for the image. And we'll be looking at how to add these images as well later on. So yeah, those are some common attributes we'll be using in views. You could look into it, look into more attributes, more views on your own on the course as well. The course explains all of these items in detail, so you would understand when you're going through the course. Then coming to activities, as I said in the last session, activities are basically, so yeah, this slide is about what I was telling right now about layouts and views. And then coming to activities, as I said in the last session, if you have listened, activities are basically like a whole screen or a page of a app. So the whole screen is contained inside what's called an activity. It's a component given by the Android framework. There are many components like this. So activity is the main thing you would be using. There would be at least one activity in an app. So you need at least one screen to view. So if you have many screens, you could use many activities. And yeah, it's a whole screen page in your app. And how you can make an activity in code is basically you just make a class and you give it your name. So usually you give it what a dash activity. So if you want, let's say a profile activity, you just type a profile activity. It's just a name for your class, and then you inherit app compat activity or the activity class. There are two activity classes. You usually use app compat activity. As I said before, compat is basically the Android keyword used to show that it is compatible with all Android versions. So you usually use app compat activity. So when you inherit this class automatically becomes an activity. So in the activity, there are many what you call as life cycle methods. So this may sound complex at first, but what this, as you can see the diagram here, what this does is basically what you won't believe it, but it actually does is it decomplexifies your app. So it makes it easier for you to understand. Uh, so whenever you start your app, right, the activity gets started. So that's what is shown on the blue part here. And then this is what's called, this method is by default available from the class we inherited right now. So the onCreate method is what's called first. So that is used to create the activity. This is where you define what you want the activity to do, everything about the activity usually. And then it just calls all of these commands in certain scenarios. So where it says activity is running is when your app is completely open and ready to do whatever your app does. So it goes through on start, on resume. All these are what's called life cycle methods, life cycle callbacks, you could say. So what these, as I said, it reduces complexity for the developer to understand, because let's say you are using your app and you get a phone call. So as in your phone, you would have seen when you get a phone call, dialogue, a pop-up appears and it says your call, someone's calling you. So what happens is your activity is not in full visibility. So something came over it, right? So it goes to a state called on pause. So that's what this method is here. So you just provide what you want to do when something comes in front of your activity in this method. You wouldn't be using this, but I'm just telling it because these are the basic theory about Android. This is what will be asked in the interview. No matter how high level you go, you shouldn't forget this. Yeah. So the next method is on stop. So on stop basically occurs when you close an app, right? When you go home, with without closing it on the switcher, on the, what do you say, the app switcher. Yeah. So on stop is called when you go home and you go to another apps and all. So it is no longer visible. That's when on stop is called. And then on destroy is called when you completely close the app from the app switcher as well. So when you close the app completely, on destroy is called, and the activity is shut down. So basically, these are the methods you'll be using on create mainly. That is the one method you should always use when you are using activities to define what your activity does, basically. So in Android Studio, you could easily use all of these methods by just going inside the class and just typing on, and then it gives suggestions for all the methods available. You don't have to know everything here. Just no, let's say I showed on destroy before, right? So on destroy is a method available here. You just click on this and it generates the code for you. So yeah, so you type on create and you get all of this code. So going through the code, this is the function, main function that show displays the view. So the layout which we created, right, activity main.xml, we want this activity to show this layout. So what this function does is that exactly that. So it uses what's called an R class. R stands for resource. So all the resources you provide here is automatically identified using the R class here in Java or Kotlin. In this case, Kotlin. And then you type on dot layout, which goes to the layout folder, and then dot activity main. That's the file we created before. So yeah, that's how you reference layouts in code. And then going through the code, now we want to attach the functionality that when we press this button, we want the dice to be rolled, right? So first of all, what we want to do is we want to access the button in our code. So what the function used is called find view by ID. As it says, you find the view which you need by the ID we provided using the XML attributes before. So if I click on roll number, it says here as well, the ID I gave was BTN role. So it's just a short form which I use. So you give find view by ID and then the type of the view you are accessing. So button is for button. And then you give R again for resources dot ID. So all IDs are stored under ID. So if you want to access an ID, you just type dot ID and then dot whatever your ID is. For button role, it was button role. And you just store it in a value. This is what we looked at in Kotlin yesterday. It's basically a variable which can't be changed. So yeah, now we have the button here. Now what we want to do is we want to set that whenever we click on this button, we want the dice to be rolled, right? So what the function available here is called set on click listener. So as it says, when we click on it, we want this operation to happen. So it listens for when the user clicks on the button. So that's what on click listener is. So yeah, that's the function we'll be using. And when we click on the button here, we just run the function called roll dice. So that's a function we gave here. This is what I made. So we'll be looking into this function. Just going back to the slides. So yeah, I mentioned life cycle. I mentioned that we want to use on create, use a layout, and then if you're listening to this, you would have thought, why should I go through all this complexity for all this what's called boilerplate? So you're usually typing all of this again and again and again. So this is pretty useless, right? So Android Studio actually simplifies this. So if you want activity on this folder, let's say, so you just right click on the folder, go to new, and then there are many Android icon options here. So there is one called activity. Then you could just choose blank activity. Blank is basically an empty activity. So there are many other activities as well. They are presets. So if you choose blank activity, you just type the name of the activity you want. So there's already one called main activity, so it comes as main activity 2. And then the layout name, main activity main is already taken, so activity main 2. So yeah, you just give finish, and then it just generates the activity for you by yourself. So by itself. So it just generated this XML. So it's just loading. That's why it's not appearing. So yeah, it generated the on create everything like that. I didn't choose blank activity, so it just used another made another activity. So sorry, that's my mistake. Um so yeah, that's how you make activities easily. Going on with the presentation. Yeah, I briefly mentioned in the last session about a thing called Gradle. So if you're seeing the loading screen below just before, Gradle is the thing used to build the whole APK for the Android project, right? So it's where you mention all the things you need to build your app. So there are two Gradles here. One is called project and one is called module, right? So the project one basically holds what Kotlin version you want to use, what Gradle version you want to use. As you can see here, it mentions the Kotlin version. It mentions so you wouldn't have to change all of this stuff usually. So main part is the module build.gradle. That is under, if you were to go in your Windows Explorer manually, it is under the app folder. So going through this file that is automatically generated, plugins are basically plugins that you are using in your app. So these are default ones. Android application is for your Android application. Kotlin Android is for running Kotlin. And then there's the Android block. This basically holds the configuration for your app. So if you want the app to just run on KitKat and above, you would mention the minimum SDK version given here. Minimum SDK version is the minimum Android version your app can run on. So if you can only run it on KitKat, you just give the version code here. KitKat is 19. So what the I've given here is 23, which is Marshmallow. You could just look it up easily. The numbers, you don't have to remember it. And then the version name for the app. So if you have a one version 1.0, 1.12 like that, you just change the version name here. And these stuff here are basically for when you are putting it on the Play Store. You just have to make sure the app is as small as possible, right? The APK. That's what you use. All of this is for. This is a pretty advanced topic. You don't have to look at it now. This basically these lines of code basically says what version to use to run. You don't have to look at that as well. And then going on to dependencies. This is the main part we'll be using in build.gradle usually. Dependencies are basically external libraries that we are using in our app. So for example, if you have to do something complex, let's say if you want to fetch something from the internet, so you could use a library for that. A library is basically code that someone else has typed that you're using in your app, right? So that's what you are typing here. Usually if you go for finding some library, they'll give you the code that you have to type here. You just copy paste. So we looked at constraint layout before. This is the dependency for the constraint layout here, and the version as well. So there is Kotlin dependency, there is Android stuff, there is the theming dependency. This is for themes. There's a constraint layout, and there are many dependencies here. You just add dependencies here. Yeah, that's what is about Gradle files. Uh, and moving on. Yeah, I wanted to show how to add images to your app. So you all may know there are two types of images. There are vector images and raster images. If you don't know, raster images are like the normal images you usually share, PNG, JPG, all the types. So when you zoom in too much, it becomes pixelated, right? So what vectors are basically, they are basically graphs in a sense. So you just give it coordinates, and the system builds the image for you. So what's the advantage of this is, you are just storing the coordinates, right? It takes very less space, and the main advantage is it can be built to any size. So if you are making a very big image, let's say, you could just give it a vector. It would be only 1 KB size, but it will not be pixelated when you are making it very big. So yeah, there are two types of resources like that. For adding those to your app, you could just go to the resource manager part on the left here, left toolbar, and then you click on the plus icon here. When you click on the plus icon, you get three main options. One is called image asset. If you click on that, you could give the icon for your app, so what appears on your launcher. So well, whenever, if you know, there is a WhatsApp logo, right? That's what this is, the same for your app. So this is the icon which I gave. You could modify your color, background color, foreground image, icon, all the stuff here, and it just shows all the sizes of the icon that you want. So you just give next and you set your icon. That's it for image asset. And vector asset is for vectors. So this is how you will be adding most of the small icons. So if you go on the clip art, which is the default option, you could click here, and Android Studio actually includes a set of open source icons for you to use. So you could use your all these icons in your app if you want for free. So these have all the common icons, right? These have the plus icon, the minus icon, all the usual icons that you would be using. So that's how you add those icons. And then coming to import drawables, that's where you upload your images. So let's say you have your own image. So if you want to upload your own photo, you could just go to the import drawable and just choose where your image is. So my dice images are here. So I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 for 6 faces of the dice. So I could just click OK and import, but I already have them added, so I'm not adding them. You could also view your images here. So yeah, this is the dice one image. So you have all these images here. So yeah, that's how you add images to your app. Moving on. Yeah, error handling. So let's say you are doing some app, and your app crashes, and you completely don't know what happened. So what helps you in Android Studio is a thing called Logcat below here. Logcat is basically for showing your logs. As you can see, many text is going above, scrolling up. So this is from my phone. I have my phone selected, and this is my app, right? So if I'm running this app, and if I go under error, so if some error were to happen, it would show under here. All these error are nothing. This is not from the app. This is from whatever is running on my phone, right? So you could, when your app crashed, you could easily view where your app crashed here, and it would just say what caused the crash as well. So if I were to, for example, to intentionally crash this app, so you could do this by just throwing an error, throw exception. Yeah. Oh yeah, I can't show this the demo right now, but if you were to intentionally crash this app right now, it would just say on line 20, this function was thrown, so your app crashed. So if you don't know what's happening in your app, you could just you use the logcat to view your errors. And another thing you would use is basically if you want to know some variable value, let's say, while your app is running. So you could use what's called log statements. So log statements appear in logcat. So if you want to show an error, say a log here, you just type log. So the suggestion already came up, and then dot e for error, and then you just give the tag which stands for where the error was thrown. So I'm throwing. So I'm showing this. in main activity, right? So I just type main activity, and then my whatever value I want to print here. So if I want to print, let's say in my case, if I want to print whatever dice random number I generated, so I could just use this function here. So this basically says log, and then D stands for debug, E stands for error. It just shows under different tabs. That's it. And in main activity, the random number is random number. This is the variable that we want to show. So you could just use log statements to know what's happening in your app while you're making the app. Then another tips to not crash your app is to try not to use nullable variables. So try not to assign null to anything. Try to use non-nullable variables. Then you can easily find out where the error and why it's occurring. So instead of the error just being this was null, you don't know why it's null, right? So try not to use nullable variables and try to use val as much as possible instead of var. Var is, as I said, you could change the variable. Val means you can't change the variable. So if you can't change it, you make less errors, right? So, and then another tip is to not give same IDs for views. So we saw IDs for identifying views, right? So if a button was BTN role, so you don't give BTN role to another button as well. It just defeats the point of what an ID is. So then use friendly variable names. I can't express this enough. Please don't use variables like I, X, A, B, C, A, B, 1, 2, 3. Don't use variables names like that. Just give friendly names. Like if I'm generating a random number, I give the variable name as a random number. That's more friendly because when the app crashes, you know what variable does it. It doesn't say like uh, I was null. You don't know what I is. You don't know why it's null. It just creates confusion for others as well. So then main point is Google the error which you got if you don't understand what it is. Uh, it easily up 1,000 Stack Overflow links for you. You could just view what the error is. The other people explain how to fix it as well. So if you still don't, you could just come to the WhatsApp group, the link which I've shared, and just ask me. Uh, so yeah, going into our dice roller app back again. We looked at activities, right? So basically, what we are doing here is calling the function, right? The roll dice function. So what the roll dice function does is, first what we are doing is we are getting the reference to the image view. The image view is what the dice image is showed in. So we are the same way as we got the button here. My ID is IV dice, and then we are getting the edit text. Edit text is basically for the text field that is used to enter. So when you enter something, you use an edit text. So I'm entering something. This thing is called an edit text. So yeah, we are getting the edit text reference here as well, and then we are coming on to the function that generates a random number. So what we're doing is storing the random number in a value, and then to generate the random number, what we are giving is one dot dot six. What this is called it is called an integer range. So to specify what's a, let's say you want to go from 1 to 6, you just need to give it 1 dot dot 6, and it just goes through all the values, and the type is called integer range. So it just goes through all those ranges, and you use the random function to just generate a random variable from those numbers. So from 1 to 6, you are just generating a random number, and you're using the when statement here. When is synonymous to switch, as I said before in another languages. So you use when and just check what the number is, the random number you got. So if the random number is 1, this statement basically sets it to the image to dice 1. I'll be explaining this. Then there is 2, 3, 4. It sets all the dice images to 2, 3, 4. That's what this function does. So the function used to show images is, you first of all call it on the image view, right? You need to set the image to the image view. So you call dot set image drawable. When we imported, we saw the keyword called as drawable. Drawable is basically all the images in your app. So you're setting the image drawable to something which you already saved. So how you get that image that you saved is using this long line. This is actually super. I mean, it's super repetitive. There are easier ways to do this using libraries that I mentioned before. There are image loader libraries that could simplify. So you could just type in using under another library, you could just type ivdice.load and just give the name for your drawable. That would be easier than this, right? But the default way to do this is using what's called a context compat.get drawable. This is the function that you will be needing. Context compat, as I said, it's for compatibility, and context is basically giving the power of an activity to something else to do an operation. So if you are accessing a drawable, you need the power of an activity, right? That's the whole component of your app. So you're basically giving it context and the id for the drawable. So the context is this is basically for this class. Main activity is the class, and this is for main activity. So yeah, that's the context. So you're giving the power of the activity to access the drawable. And then you mentioned the drawable that you are using the resource class r dot drawable. Before we use ids and layout, this is for drawable, and then the name for the drawable. So yeah, if it's one, we are setting dice one. If it's two, we are setting dice two, and so on. So that's how we set the image. And then what we have to do is the favorite functionality, right? So if I type a favorite number here, and then I spam roll. So yeah, when I rolled six, it said favorite number. What the message when it appears, what appears below is called a toast. That's what we are doing here. So what we do is we get the text by using the text function, and then we just convert it to a string. And if the text is blank, we are just taking a zero value. Otherwise, we are just converting it to an integer. So after that, we are just comparing the random number with our favorite number. If it's equal, we just show it's your favorite number using the toast function. Toast is what appeared below. So yeah, what the toast function takes is again the context. Context is the power of the activity, and then the text that has to be shown. Uh, it's your favorite number, and then the length for which the toast is to be shown. So it's toast dot length short for short toast. Then you just give the function show to show the toast. So yeah, that is how you show this toast. So yeah, that's the basic functionality of the dice roller app. And then next on, we looked at IDs, right? So there is an easier way and there's a better way to do this. What happens is if you try to access an ID that's not in your activity, right? You get null. So when you get null, your app crashes. So you usually don't use find view by ID, but that is the default way of doing stuff. So what you use is called view binding. View binding basically generates a easy way for you to access your layouts. So whenever you create a layout, it automatically generates all the code for you. And to enable this, you just have to go to your Gradle file, the Gradle file which I showed before, and then under the Android block, you just type build features and view binding true, where that's shown here. And then you access the views like this. What happens is you basically give the generated class name is your XML file name. So if you had activity main.xml, what would be generated is activity main binding. That's the class generated. So late in it, as I said before, is for initializing stuff later on. So in on create, instead of calling set content view at first itself, you are calling uh, you are inflating the layout. So inflation is basically creating the layout. It just creates the layout from XML. So we are inflating the layout using a layout inflator. That is the thing which has the power to inflate layouts. You don't have to know more complex stuff right now. So just know there's a thing called layout inflator. So you are inflating the layout from the XML, and then we are getting the root layout. That's what's called root. Root is basically the whole layout which you inflated right now. And then you are setting the content view as the root instead of passing the ID. So what this does is through this variable, you could access all the views uh, only which are only available in your activity. So you can't access something outside your activity. So it doesn't give null in your app and crash your app. So it's just an easy way to access views. Then going on, another component like activities is called fragments. So an activity is basically a whole screen, right? A fragment is basically a smaller part of a screen. So you could just it's a more lightweight component which is used for swapping in and out. So you could, as the picture shows here, you could easily have three fragments in an activity. So an activity holds a fragment, but you could have it in any size anywhere, and you could change it in and out. So it gives more power to the developer, right? So yeah, that is basically what fragments are. They also have their own life cycle. As I showed in activity, they we had on create, on destroy, and all, right? So in fragments we have on start, on stop, on create view. That's a new function. That's where you give your functionality, right? So instead of on create in activity, you use on create view or on view created in fragment. Those are two functions. So in Android Studio, you could easily generate all this code by yourself as well. So just right click, go to new, and then under fragment, just choose blank fragment. So that's it. You just give a name and you it generates the fragment for you. You just need to specify the functionality for your app. So yeah, that's the basic thing about fragments. You would be using more of this than activities, because activities are, as I said, it takes the whole screen. It is more chunky than lighter fragments. So you'd be using fragments for doing all of this stuff. So as you may have seen, let's say in the YouTube app, there are many tabs here, right, on the below, on the bottom. So this is done using fragments. So if you click on favorites, it just generates a favorite fragment above. If you click on music, it generates a music fragment above. The same with this kind of view. This is called a navigation drawer. It's the same in your Gmail app, right? So when you click on start, it just generates a start fragment which you define. So that's how you use fragments. So if you have to go somewhere, swap in and out, the easy way is using fragments. And there's another thing called as navigation, and specifically Jetpack navigation. This is an easy library which is used to navigate between fragments and activities. So you don't just have one screen in an app, in your app, right? As you see the photo below, you have many screens. So if you have many screens, you want to go from one to another, you have to pass data between others, right? So you could just use that Jetpack navigation library to make stuff easier. It has an easy way of passing data between fragments as well. And it also handles what's called an backstack. So backstack is basically when you go back, your app shouldn't close, right? It should show the screen you were in before. So it what it does is it stores all the screens in a stack. You may have heard what a stack is. It's basically like a book stack of books, right? You could take the books from the top. You can't take the books from the bottom. I mean, it's not synonymous to real life, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah, all the stuff like this are handled using the Jetpack navigation library. You generate what's called graphs as shown below. The graphs basically show where your app should go when you do what. So it is also interactive like the design editor. You could just point arrows and stuff. So yeah, that's how you use Jetpack navigation. So yeah, that covers most of what we are trying to do today. Uh, and of unit one. Unit one is basically about, as we see, about interacting with our app, doing the dice roller part, doing navigation, and all of that. So you go through unit one, finish unit one of the course. As I showed here, this is the course, right? So in unit one, you go inside and yeah, build your first app. That is the Hello World app we showed in the last session. Build your interactive app. This is the Dice Roller app. And about layouts, navigation, activity, and fragments. Everything is here. So if you want to understand more of the theory part and more of the practical part as well, they have detailed step-by-step instructions to do your stuff. So they have things called as code labs. So you could just go to a code lab and they give step by step introductions, right? So they say welcome, all this stuff, and you go next. They show screenshots of what to do. what stuff are. They give detailed documentation of what to do and what to copy paste, and they also have their own code as well on GitHub, so you could check those out. That's how you complete this course mainly. Just do the quiz afterwards, and that's how you earn the certificate for the course as well. So just complete the prior programming experience, and try to make your own app. That's the main part. What you need is practical experience, then more than theory. Just need to know what's used in your app, right? So try to complete unit 1 as soon as possible, and we'll be looking at unit 2 in the next session, and we'll be doing live coding as well. So right now I just showed the dice roller app I built, right? So next time we'll be looking at the jokes app which I showed in the last session. I'll show you guys again if I can. Oh, so yeah, uh, yeah, this is the jokes app. So it just shows the whatever loading animation, loading screen. Then when you click on get joke, it fetches a joke from the internet, and you could save it to the favorites, and then you could see your favorites on this favorites tab. This is using navigation, as I said before. And then this is saved offline, so you also get to know the offline database that is used in Android. It's called Room. It basically, if you know SQL, it uses SQL Lite. It's a more lighter version of SQL, you could say. So Room is the name of the library that is used. So you use this app has Jetpack navigation. It uses Room. It uses all the it uses retrofit another library to fetch data from the internet. So you need to fetch data from the internet for the jokes, right? So that's how you use. And then in the settings, you could change the theme, right? So that's another part you will be learning how to change themes. And then what we learn is also about sharing. So this thing is what's called share chooser. So when you press share, you could just share your app and all. You learn how to do all of this in the next session. So yeah, that's what we will be looking. This is unit 2 in the next session. Complete unit 1 for this session. And yeah, ask, put any doubts in chat. I'm up for questions. Put any doubts in the WhatsApp group as well if you're stuck anywhere. And yeah, after you complete this course, all the courses, we just need a screenshot of all the badges here. So you get badges from completing these courses in your Google Developers profile. You have to sign in. So just need a screenshot of that, and an app that you developed, right? So yeah, try building apps. Do the dice roller app. When you complete the unit 1, you get dice roller app. They also provide uh, a quiz app as well, so you could look at that. My number, if you want to contact me, an easy way would be through LinkedIn, or just ask in the WhatsApp group if you want. So if you are stuck somewhere, I'll post everything again. That would be better, I assume. So this is the WhatsApp link. Uh, Now that would be an easier way in LinkedIn. So if I were to give numbers out, I would be getting calls, right? So it would be easier to message me. Uh, I will definitely reply. I won't leave you at red. So yeah, so if you want to look at the code, you could just go to the GitHub link. I'll post that as well. Just go to our GitHub link, and you could view the code which we viewed today as well. I have already uploaded the jokes part as well if you want to look. And then there's a dice roller app. So if you wanted to learn about the dice roller app, you could look at it here. They also provide the code for their part as well in Code Labs. Yeah, that's the basics of today's session.
Uh,
Uh,
Sharath, some people missed the last year session, so could you show them how to do the basic part like Kotlin practice labs and all once
yeah,
more?
yeah. Sure. So if you go to the course link, which I'll give it again in the chat. So you come to this screen. There is a new programming part, and there's a prior programming experience part. New to programming part is for people who are completely new to programming. You don't even know another programming language, so you just do that. What we are covering is the prior programming experience. This is what is used in our course. This is what gets you the certificate as well. So you just go to Kotlin cons here. So when you click on that, it goes to a site where you can practice Kotlin out. They also give you solutions and all. So when the site opens, you could go to Playground and then you could just type out Kotlin code here, and then you could run it. So you could type out whatever you want. You could try out functions and all. And if you want, you could go to examples part and then just view at examples. So we looked at when statements, right? So this is the example for a when statement. So there are many examples here provided by the Kotlin team itself. So you could look at all of these examples, run it. You could run it using the play button here. And then you could go to cons, which this is basically an exercise for you to look at Kotlin. So yeah, this is how you practice Kotlin. And then if you come back, you could go to the start course button afterwards. And then there are 2 units here, 2 units about Android mainly. So yeah, unit 1 covers whatever we taught today. Unit 2 will cover more of the advanced topics like architecture, about fetching from internet, saving to the local database and all, and showing a list of items mainly. So that is what unit 2 covers. Hi, I'm intermediate Java, but I don't know. Yeah, Kotlin is very easy if you know Java. It's super easy, the transition, and especially if you know Android development, it's even easier. So if you want, there is actually a course on Coursera called Kotlin for Java developers. So you could just view that course if you want, or you could just try out some examples, try to convert an app you see already built to Kotlin. So it actually takes less time to build in Kotlin itself if you know Java. Do we need minimum of 8 GB RAM? So yeah, recommended minimum specs is 4 GB. It would be better if you have 8 GB because Android Studio is pretty heavy. So yeah, as you saw, it has many features and all, right, to generate stuff for you, to suggest. It has many plugins and all. So all these things needs a lot of memory from your system. So 4 is the minimum. We prefer 8. Do we need to have proper knowledge of Java? No, you just need basics of any programming language would be beneficial. It's not required that you know Java before. If you know Java before, the transition would be easier. That's what I said. If you know a programming language, it's same as any other programming language. It just has like if you were to compare C and C++ and all, it just has a lot more easier ways to do stuff that you usually do. So you just need to know what are the functions, what are the statements that you're going to be using. Yeah, so all you need is basically practice. So yeah, it's not required that you know Java before. Is there any other questions? So I'm guessing we are done. uh, so yeah, thank you all for coming. uh, so try to complete unit 1 as I said. Try to build your own apps. If you have any queries, come to the WhatsApp group. So yeah, thank you all for coming today. This has been session 2 of the Android Study Jams event. Uh, and handing it over to Abhinav. You have anything to say?
Nothing. So make sure you attend all the three events, so that you can complete all these code labs and earn a certificate at last also. So make sure you attend all the events, and if you have any doubts, you can ask in the WhatsApp group where he is present. So that's all for the session.
Yeah. Thank you all for
Okay.
coming. We'll be trying to upload the recording if you want to view it as well. So yeah, we'll
Yeah,
be
those who
notifying anything in the WhatsApp
missed
group.
the first class, we'll be uploading a recording as well within 1 or 2 days in the group.
Yeah. So just join the WhatsApp group. Uh, yeah. Thank you all for coming. And that's it for today's session. So yeah, have a great day and good night.